Join Time Magazine's lead education reporter alongside global educators and advocates to explore the impacts of teaching forgiveness.
I teach forgiveness because it can have a positive impact in my students' families.
It helps my students thrive in the face of adversity.
Students who can forgive are happier.
Join us to hear from teachers and thought leaders on how and why to include forgiveness in your classroom.
Good afternoon to all present here with us for the T4 World Education Week in Celebrating Schools. I'm Ranjani Ramnath, your moderator for this session. Our speaker, Mrs. Asha Alexander, the principal of GEMS Legacy School, Dubai, and the executive leader of climate change for GEMS Education, will take you through the immersive theme of supporting healthy lives, including well-being, mental health, and nutrition. Dear audience, please use the hashtag World Edu Week to share and post your views, inputs, reactions, and on social media from this thought-stimulating and actionable discussion. I repeat, World Edu Week. If you have any questions or comments as we progress through this session, please post them to the Q&A tab on your screen and we will get back to you at the end of this interaction. We would be delighted to be in constant association with you. To further engage with us, do connect by exploring our website, www.gemslegacyschool-dubai.com. The handles to our social media have been added to the chat. To keep yourself updated on various initiatives and projects we host. Well, what are we waiting for? Let me first begin by introducing our school. The GEMS Legacy School first opened in 1990 and has, over the last 3 decades, developed a reputation in creating a legacy of empathy, resilience, leadership, and sustainable living. In line with our vision, we define ourselves as an environmentally conscious organization, striving to work on a plethora of practices and initiatives to create an impressionable global impact, interwoven carefully into our curriculum. Join me in taking a quick look into the context of GLS.
to GEMS Legacy School. We wish to leave a legacy in children of leadership, empathy, resilience, and sustainable living. Every student that passes through the portals of the GEMS Legacy School will grow grounded in the GEMS core values and will meet the needs of society.
Mrs. Asha Alexander is the principal at GEMS Legacy School, Dubai, and the executive leader of climate change at GEMS Education. She received her Master of Science in Educational Leadership from the Walden University, Minnesota, and also holds master degrees in Education and English from the Bangalore University, India. With 33 years of experience in the sublime field of education for students from K to 12, she has overseen the school's transition to an exclusively digital curriculum. Passionate, driven to achieve aspirational goals, and ready to take on any challenge, she believes in nurturing hearts and minds of students. She continuously champions the cause for a value-based education and has made presentations at the COP25 and numerous other workshops, webinars, and conferences internationally. I welcome Mrs. Asha Alexander with my first question for today. The journey of initiating change at the GEMS Legacy School wouldn't have been easy. How have you led this change in including the spirit of sustainable development? Mrs. Asha Alexander, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ranjani, for the question. The GEMS Legacy School has been synonymous with change ever since I took over around 11 years ago. The first thing that I noticed was that the school was following a very traditional CBSE curriculum, which was teacher-led and with the use of textbooks. We envisioned a school that would be transacting the curriculum digitally, and we wanted this for our students. But the challenge lay in moving a body of parents, teachers, and students to the new mode of learning. So that was the first change that was introduced in the school. It was relevant to our context, and we felt it was the need of the hour. What it taught us was that people are not ready to change. They're not ready to seek discomfort. They're not ready to move outside their zones of comfort, and they do not want disruption of any kind. But that transition taught us that change and embedding change requires us to continually introduce what is new and relevant and changing in the world outside in our school. Otherwise, people tend to get complacent. So the changes that we introduced needed buy-in from our parents, from our teachers and our students, while continually upskilling them with the ways to use technology seamlessly in lessons. And that was really a great piece of learning for us at the school. But it gave us a further direction. We realized that the world around us is changing. And if we want to deliver a curriculum that is relevant and useful for society, we need to make those changes within our curriculum. We were emboldened by our success at moving a body of students which were 5,000 strong and a parent body of 10,000, changing their mindsets and effectively delivering a digital curriculum, that we looked at the gaps in our curriculum and decided we needed to introduce the Sustainable Development Goals, in particular climate literacy. So we engaged with UNCC Learn and had all our teachers trained 162 classrooms had climate literate teachers in them. And so began the journey of embedding climate literacy in the school. It wasn't sufficient just to give them content and to become the first school in the world to have a climate change teacher in every classroom. We wanted a platform for children to apply their learning in the real world context. So we began the Plant a Legacy campaign with a commitment to planting 15,000 trees every year. This has grown exponentially and is now a worldwide campaign. We felt that we needed to go further, and we decided that our teachers and students need to be introduced to the Sustainable Diet course, again being offered by UNCC Learn. And this is now thriving in our GEMS Legacy School, and this is what we want to share with you this evening. So have a look at the changes that have been captured in this video, which has happened over the last decade at our school.
The school has been in existence for the last 30 years. It was earlier known as the Kindergarten Starters, primary school in the heart of Dubai, where we catered to the mid-market segment of the population. We were given permission to move to becoming a through K-12 provision. With that, there was a change in name to the GEMS Legacy School.
With a climate change teacher in every class, our teachers, parents, and students can not only understand about climate change and what it means, but they've internalized the urgency to act now, to transform this world into carbon sinks, which are much needed for mitigating climate change.
Innovation is something that happens everywhere, and it's driven by inquiry. In fact, inquiry is the engine that drives innovation. But I would like to point out that innovation can happen in the environment, in the curriculum, in strategies, in policies, in procedures. And so innovation is something that comes out of the need for a better, more effective, and easier solution to a kind of a problem that the school may be facing, the community may be facing, or maybe it's a world problem.
I surely wouldn't call it change, but more so a transformation. Your leadership has surely been visible in changing behaviors, attitudes, and mindsets of such a large school. This brings me to the next question. I'm intrigued to know, how were you able to embed research in the context of a mid-market school like GEMS Legacy?
Thank you for your question, Ranjani. I believe research is possible in any segment, whether it's mid-market or premium. What happens here is that you need to create another mindset, one that questions practices and procedures. As leaders, we have to give permission to our staff and to our students to be able to question established practices, procedures, and strategies. No one should be doing something because it's just been handed to them. Every strategy, every idea must be explored, and whether it suits our context must be considered. And the teachers and the students should have the freedom to question, why are we learning this? What is the purpose of learning what we are being asked to learn? The teachers at our school were encouraged to undertake action research. Sometimes this extends over a period of 3 to 6 months. Question the practices, look at the findings, and see how it impacts learning. This was actually set in place because we were working with Project Zero, Harvard Graduate School of Education, for 3 years on a research project called Creating Communities of Innovation. And the researchers at Harvard taught our teachers how to formulate questions, how to tweak them, how to look at data, look at the analysis, and see the impact of the research on students. And we were asked to share our findings with the 7 of the GEM schools who were participating in the research. And that taught us the importance of sharing our findings. So we began the Action Research Carousel, which enabled our teachers to share their findings and their best practices with the GEMS community and the wider UAE community, which is exactly what T4 Education Week is doing. We have 100 schools sharing their best practices so we can learn from one another. This was one of the most powerful forms of professional development for our teachers. And we wanted to make sure that whatever we attempted was research-based, grounded in research, so that teachers became reflective practitioners. So even while introducing the sustainable diet, it was carried out in research conditions to see what its impact would be. And then these findings were shared with the rest of the school to have it scaled up across the school because we found it beneficial. Here is a little video to share with you where teachers tell you about the benefits of action research at GEMS Legacy School.
Action research has been a very unique pedagogical practice for the past 7 years. So it all started with students and teachers and leaders asking questions about their own practices as reflective practitioners. And slowly they began asking themselves, what is the impact of online assessments on my students' attainment and progress? And so on, they started asking questions, and we gave them a platform called the Action Research Carousel, where they would work together and then they would present their findings in the Action Research Carousel. And more so, they used this data to inform their future planning, inform the curriculum, inform the teaching. So it began to be fed forward into their day-to-day teaching and learning.
The teachers and leaders who have successfully finished action research throughout all these years affirm the fact that without any doubt, action research is the best form of professional development, as it helps them to inquire, ask questions about their own educational practices, and allows them to make informed decisions to improve the same.
Before I move on to my next question, I would like to remind the audience that if you have any comments, any questions, please feel free to add them on the question answer box. We will get back to it at the end of the session. The Action Research Carousel is truly an engaging way to ensure the professionals embed evident and actionable steps to improve their teaching and learning practices. With students and teachers engaged in the sustainable diet course, I'm sure it would have had a palpable impact on students' behavior and mindsets. Mrs. Asha Alexander, can you please elaborate on how sustainable diet has empowered student agency and impacted their lives?
Most certainly, Ranjani. I think whenever we give children an opportunity to act and give them a platform, we are amazed by the changes that they can bring about. And so also with the sustainable diet which was introduced. The minute students understood that what they ate had an impact on the world around them and on the environment, they became responsible. And they took the initiative to alter what they were eating so as to reduce its carbon footprint. So we had students moving from eating white rice to brown rice. They made sure that they cut down on the consumption of meat. They became aware that they should eat local produce. So they were looking at the labels when they were shopping and making sure that they were purchasing things that were available locally rather than having it flown out into a country as far away as Dubai. They were also very mindful of the fact that they should not waste their food. And this was very, very important to the children. So much so that they did a survey in the hotels surrounding our school to see which was the most wasted food product. And they advised the hotel owners to conserve food, to make sure that food was not wasted, because it was having a huge impact on the environment. Once you give children this kind of power and you empower them, they begin influencing others, especially in their homes. I found changes being made to the diets. Parents were vouching for the fact that now their meals were more sustainable and nutritious. They were able to influence their siblings and the peers in school. And this kind of information that they got through the carbon footprint calculators made them stronger in their advocacy of a sustainable diet. They were so enthused that we wanted to make sure that we took this a step further. So we collaborated with the Food and Behavior Research Institute in the United Kingdom with Dr. Alex Richardson and Philippa Burdine to make sure that the diet was not just sustainable, but nutritious as well. And this is what children can do. This is the power of student voice, and children as young as kindergarten were able to make changes and influence others while they went about saving the environment. And this transition is captured so well in this video.
After taking a sustainable diet course, I learned that making good food choices can make you healthier and stronger. I also learned that a good food item contains nutrients, minerals, carbohydrates, etc. Not only did I learn to take good food, but I've also learned to stop food wastage. Now I take my food on time. I'm confident enough to take right food and help others do the same.
I want to make a difference. I want to make a difference.
I want to make a difference.
I want to make a difference.
From what you have just discussed, student agency comes through so very strongly. Mrs. Alexander, during the pandemic, we have witnessed minimized social interactions and restricted physical activity, which has affected students' emotional and social well-being. What are those initiatives that you have taken in GLS to promote a healthy body and a balanced mind?
You couldn't have put it better, Ranjini. The pandemic saw most of us bound to our houses. Children were limited, especially in Dubai with its heat, to go out and play in the playgrounds. They were largely indoors watching TV, and the messaging on the TV was not always hopeful. So they were anxious and watchful and worried about the pandemic. They couldn't share these thoughts with their teachers and their peers because they were at home, largely online. And this had its impact on them gaining weight. It was not only the children, I'm sure the adults in the houses were also undergoing something very similar. But we were able to pick up on the well-being of students. We decided that we needed to take some concrete steps for both their physical and mental well-being. So we had begun this food and behavior research with the institute in UK. And we found that we needed to make sure that this was a comprehensive program that flowed right through the school. So we call the program Take in Goodness, because we believe that whatever's put into your mind and your body is the net result of who you become. So we wanted good thoughts and good nutrition for every single child. And so we began monitoring their lunch plates, their lunch boxes, and students were given stars if they had a nutritionally balanced meal at least once a day, which teachers monitored. And students were so passionate about getting it right and making sure that they presented a balanced meal so that their teachers could give them stars, and these lunch boxes were scored. We also monitored their health through their exercise. We made sure they put in the number of steps they took a day and the number of hours they had good sound sleep. And the PE teachers made sure that through online exercises that children were engaged in some kind of physical activity throughout the day. Now, when you have putting goodness into the children, the outcome will be something to look forward to. But we also knew they were anxious, that some of them were worried about the pandemic and what it's doing to the world around them. So we introduced the mental health curriculum because it's an essential part of making sure that students are sound both in body and mind. We altered our curriculum. We were not just delivering what we were teaching before, because the need of the hour was to make sure that students were engaged, they were active, and they were positive in their outlook. Here is a little video where the teachers share the impact of the mental health curriculum and these changes which were introduced at the GEMS Legacy School.
In the course of teaching and learning the mental health curriculum, I have observed that children have been making a sense of themselves by understanding the importance of the five senses to perceive the world. They have also been learning how to be resilient when exposed to certain circumstances and so much more.
Completing the UNCC course on sustainable diet saw the beginning of a new me. As an educator, I was exposed to so much new learning that made me realize that the food I take in not only impacts me, but also my environment. This encouraged us to make our children complete the course as well. On the course completion, we encouraged a lot of student discussions to understand from them the impact the course has made.
I concur with you that the students do require these skills to be a part of a healthy and sustainable future for this planet. May I please request the audience that if you have any questions, comments, to please put it down on the question and answer tab, and we will get back to it at the end of this session. Back to the questions, Mrs. Alexander. I can see that you have taken a holistic approach to well-being. As the GEMS executive leader of climate change for GEMS education, you haven't just stopped with GLS. Can you tell us how did you scale this further by collaborating with other GEMS schools and the wider community of schools all across the world?
Collaboration is indeed the key, Ranjani, if we have to scale this across the world. And the pandemic offered us a unique opportunity because now almost all schools were online. We didn't have access to schools like we had during the pandemic. All schools could be accessed if we chose to reach out to them. And we had benefited so much from all the changes that we had made that we wanted to explore and share our learning with the wider world. And when we saw this opportunity, we formed the GEMS Global Ambassador Society with almost 50 schools now worldwide in the society. And the mandate was that every school would assist a local school and twin with a school in another country as well. Imagine the capacity of schools to create ripples all around the world by sharing their best practices and sharing the learning that they've had. So we looked at creating an impact around the world. So we reach out to audiences here today with us If any of your schools would like to engage with GEMS Legacy and the Global Ambassadors Program, we invite you to be a part of this network, growing network of schools, whose potential, I think, is to reach to the recesses of the poorer, developing and underdeveloped countries and give the exposure and the necessary support to those schools to be able to understand how they can also contribute. And they can learn from all these wonderful schools we have here, both on the T4 as well as across the world. There are so many schools in the world who have the capacity to train and help other schools. So the GEMS Global Ambassadors Program that we have envisioned is to bring as many schools as possible together. It's not enough if one school or a few schools try to change the others. We can have a much greater impact if we all work together. So that was the intention with which the GEMS Global Ambassador Program came into being. But we also had another platform called the School Conference of Parties Expo, which we instituted last year. After having visited COP25, I realized that students did not have a platform in the world to debate and discuss climate action. So we put together this platform, which is the first of its kind in the world, where school students can debate and discuss climate action. And we are holding this now on October 26th, once again from the Expo at Siemens Experience Center for children around the world. And we already have 45 schools signed up to participate and for young children to express their opinion and take action. When we provide children opportunities and platforms such as these, they become the change that we wish to see in the world. And we owe it to them to enable them to take this opportunity and influence one another and change one another. The energy I see in classes which are conducted online, where children are teaching other children in different parts of the world, is something that has to be seen to be believed. And here is a glimpse of what that looks like.
The GEMS Global Ambassador School not only creates a sense of responsibility towards sustainable development, but also collaborate and share practices to achieve. Various initiatives and projects are conducted all around the world, catering to each SDG, thereby educating and advocating. Fostering such relationships at the school level prepares students to accept and grow with a global perspective.
We are glad to have had an opportunity to team up with Mrs. Asha Alexander and to be part of the Sustainable Diet Program. In an effort to understand and assess the true impact of what we eat, in December, we at TMS embarked on a Sustainable Diet Challenge. Today, as I speak, 40 students, teachers, and a parent have completed the UNCC e-learn course on sustainable diet. We look forward to taking this further and making measurable and impactful changes in our food choices.
This course was indeed an eye-opener to me as I got to know more about the impact of the most common food items such as processed food, locally grown fruits, and even meat. I was able to discuss more about the health and environmental benefits related to regenerative and sustainable farming.
A sustainable future for all is possible, but only if we work together to create a peaceful and inclusive society on a healthy planet. To walk towards that future, the essential ingredient is partnership, that no SDG can be solved by individual schools working alone in silos. Partnerships are and will be the primary mover.
This ripple effect would surely be the way to a sustainable and globalized future. Mrs. Alexander, what would be the one key takeaway for the educators of the world from your school's success story?
Ranjani, the one takeaway that I would like to offer is a template for managing and effecting change that is sustainable. Regardless of what you wish to change, regardless of what new idea or innovation you want to introduce, if it has to be long lasting, it should begin with observation. Every school is unique, it has its own context, and one needs to see what needs to be changed in that context. The change that is relevant for our school may not be the same for your schools around the world. So one has to explore and see where is your school situated, what in the school needs to change, and why does it need to change. It comes